Cop arrests black woman, but freezes when he sees her real rank. Comment below from which city you're watching and hit the subscribe button if you like the video. A young black woman steps out of her car on a quiet evening, unaware that within minutes, her dignity, her identity, and her authority would all be questioned. Blue lights flash behind her. A police officer approaches, suspicion heavy in his eyes. To him, she's just another driver to pull over, just another face to challenge. But this moment was about to turn into something far greater than a routine stop. The officer's voice grows sharp, his commands louder. She complies, calm, yet firm, carrying herself with a quiet strength he cannot yet see. And then, it happens. He cuffs her wrists, believing he has power over her, believing he's in control. What he doesn't know is that this woman carries a rank higher than almost anyone in the country. 4 stars, the kind of authority that commands armies, the kind of honor that takes a lifetime of sacrifice to earn. And in that split second, when the truth is revealed, the officer's world shatters. This wasn't just a woman he arrested. This was a leader, a warrior, a general. But how did she get here? And what happened in that unforgettable moment that left an entire police department shaken to its core? Stay with me, because this is the story you'll never forget. The story of that unforgettable night doesn't begin on the roadside, with flashing blue lights or raised voices. It begins decades earlier, with a little girl named Maya Johnson. She was born in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, but dreams were not. A place where streetlights often went out before the sidewalks were fixed, where single mothers worked double shifts just to keep food on the table, and where young girls rarely heard anyone say they could grow up to be leaders. But Maya's mother was different. She worked long hours in a factory, her hands calloused, her back often aching, yet her spirit never broke. And every night, before Maya went to bed, her mother repeated one phrase that became the foundation of her daughter's life. Don't let them write your story before you pick up the pen. Those words shaped everything. Maya wasn't the loudest kid, nor the strongest, but she carried herself with a quiet intensity. Teachers noticed she never quit, even when she struggled. On the track field, she pushed her body until her legs gave out. In class, when other students laughed at her ambition, she sat straighter, studied harder, and kept going. By high school, she had already developed the one quality that would set her apart for the rest of her life: resilience. But resilience alone wasn't enough. She was also deeply curious. While her friends read magazines or gossiped after school, Maya checked out history books, especially military history. She devoured stories of generals and commanders, not because anyone expected her to become one, but because she wanted to understand what it took to lead people in the hardest of times. That curiosity soon became a passion. A dream began to take shape. Maya wanted to serve. She wanted to wear the uniform, to protect her country, to lead. But when she said it out loud, the laughter came. You? In the military? You'll never last a week. Even family members shook their heads. For a young black woman from her background, the odds seemed impossible. And yet, impossibility never frightened Maya. It fueled her. At 18, she enlisted. The first months were brutal. The drills were punishing, the nights sleepless, the pressure overwhelming. Instructors pushed her past every breaking point. Some doubted she would last. Others made it clear they didn't think she belonged. But Maya endured it all. When her arms shook during push-ups, she dug deeper. When her body ached, she told herself pain was only weakness leaving the body. And when the whispers came, she won't make it. She let those words fuel the fire inside her. Every obstacle became proof of her strength. Year after year, she rose. Promotions came slowly at first, but with every rank she earned, her reputation grew. Her soldiers didn't just respect her, they trusted her. They saw a leader who wouldn't ask them to do anything she wasn't willing to do herself. She commanded with discipline, but also with compassion. She learned to listen, to see the person behind the uniform. Her decisions weren't just strategic, they were human. And in time, she earned something no title could give: loyalty. Maya Johnson became a soldier's general. By the time she was awarded her 4th star, she stood among the highest-ranking officers in the nation. Few had reached that level. Even fewer were women, and almost none looked like her. It was more than a personal victory. It was a symbol. Proof that grit, sacrifice, and faith could break barriers that had stood for generations. But outside the uniform, things weren't always the same. When she stepped into public spaces dressed like everyone else, jeans, a simple blouse, maybe her favorite leather jacket, no one saw the 4 stars. No one knew the years of service, the sacrifices, the battles she had fought and won. They saw only what they wanted to see. A woman, a black woman. Someone to underestimate, someone to question. And that truth followed her, no matter how high she climbed. One evening, after long days of briefings and decisions that shaped entire divisions, Maya finally had a quiet night. To herself. She drove down a peaceful 2-lane road, the kind of road where trees pressed close on either side and the hum of crickets filled the silence. She loved drives like these. No meetings, no reports, just the rhythm of the engine and the open stretch ahead. The dashboard glowed softly. Her hand rested on the steering wheel, relaxed. For once, life felt simple, until it didn't. From behind her, faint at first, came a flicker of red and blue. Flashing lights cut through the night. A police cruiser was closing in. She glanced at EO. The speedometer. She wasn't speeding. She checked her mirrors. Her seatbelt was on. Her tags were valid. Still the lights kept flashing. Her stomach tightened. She pulled gently to the side of the road, slowing to a stop. And in that instant, she wasn't General Johnson anymore. She wasn't the 4-star leader who commanded respect across the military. She was just a black woman alone on a dark road, facing a system that didn't always care about the truth. The officer's door opened. Heavy boots hit the gravel. His flashlight beam cut across the back window, moving toward her. She took a slow breath, steadying herself. Because deep down, Maya sensed that this stop would not be routine. It would not be ordinary. It would be the spark that set everything in motion. The night air was cool and still. The hum of cicadas buzzed from the trees as General Maya Johnson, though tonight she was just Maya in civilian clothes, sat with her hands on the steering wheel, watching the flashing lights grow brighter in her rearview mirror. Her mind shifted quickly, calm, composed, trained by years of military discipline. She told herself, "This is just a traffic stop. Stay respectful. Stay steady." But beneath that calmness was an ache she couldn't ignore. Because deep down, Maya knew. Experience had taught her that being stopped as a black woman on a lonely road was rarely simple. The cruiser pulled up behind her. The headlights and strobes flooded her car in red, white, and blue. She watched, in the mirror as the officer stepped out. Tall, broad, moving with a heavy gait. One hand on his flashlight, the other close to his holster. The beam cut through the night, blinding her rear window. She took a breath. Hands still on the wheel. "Eyes forward, the way she'd been taught. License and registration." The voice barked before he even reached her window. Maya turned slowly, lowering the glass. "Good evening, officer," she said evenly. "My name is Maya Johnson. I haven't been made aware of any infraction. Could you explain license and registration now?" His tone was sharp. No courtesy, no explanation. Maya nodded, moving deliberately. "I'm reaching into my glove compartment," she said clearly, the way military police had trained her to announce every motion. She handed over the documents with steady hands, but the officer didn't even glance at them. His eyes scanned her face, her skin, her clothes. Suspicion hardened into hostility. "What are you doing out here this late?" he demanded. Maya blinked. "Driving home from work." "Is there a problem, officer?" Instead of answering, he gestured toward the back of her car. "Step out of the vehicle." A chill crawled up her spine. "Already?" No explanation, no citation, just escalation. She stayed calm. "With all due respect, officer, may I ask why I'm being asked to exit the vehicle?" His hand shifted closer to his holster. "Out of the car. Now." Her heart thudded once, heavy in her chest. She knew better than to argue. She unlocked the door and stepped out slowly, keeping her movements deliberate. Gravel crunched under her boots. The night air seemed colder now. The officer circled her car, eyeing her like a predator circling prey. Where are you headed? Home. She repeated quietly. Where's home? Fort Jackson. That should have meant something. It should have triggered recognition. Fort Jackson was a major military installation, but his face remained blank, almost mocking. You military? He asked with a smirk, as if the idea were laughable. Yes, Maya replied, her chin lifting, slightly. He snorted. We'll see about that. Before she could respond, he ordered her to place her hands on the hood of her car. Maya's breath caught. Officer, is there a reason? Hands. On. The hood. For a moment, the world slowed. She thought of the countless soldiers she had commanded, the missions she had overseen, the lives that depended on her calm under pressure. And now, here she was, being treated like a suspect for the crime of existing. She placed her hands on the hood. The officer patted her down roughly, his hands pressing against her arms, her back. She felt humiliation burn through her chest, but she kept her eyes forward. Stay calm. Don't react. When he found nothing, his frustration seemed to deepen. Turn around. She obeyed. And then, click. Cold steel tightened around her wrists. Handcuffs. Maya inhaled sharply. This was no longer a stop. This was an arrest. The cuffs bit into her skin, too tight. Her breath came shallow, but her voice remained steady. Officer, I believe there's been a mistake. I am a senior officer in the United States Army. If you'll allow me to— Quiet, he snapped. You think dropping some story's gonna get you out of this? Maya's lips pressed together. Rage flickered inside her, but years of discipline held it down. She thought of her mother's words. Don't let them write your story before you pick up the pen. But here she was, her story being written in chains. The officer pulled her toward the cruiser. Gravel scraped under her boots as she stumbled forward. Every step felt heavier, not because of the cuffs, but because of what they symbolized. Erasure. She wanted to shout, I've led battalions. I've stood in war zones. I've sacrificed more than you could imagine. But she didn't. Not yet. Because she knew timing mattered. He shoved her into the back seat of the cruiser. The door slammed shut. The inside smelled of sweat and rubber. A cage of plexiglass separated her from the front seat. For the first time in years, Maya felt powerless. But she wasn't broken. Her mind raced. She replayed every move, every word. She knew the truth was on her side. And yet, what if the truth never reached anyone? What if tonight she became another name, another headline? The cruiser started rolling. Her heart thudded with the rhythm of the engine. She stared out the window at the dark trees flashing past, thinking of her soldiers, thinking of the flag she swore to protect, thinking of how none of them would believe this if they saw it. And that's when her phone buzzed. The officer had tossed her belongings onto the front seat, but her smartwatch, still strapped to her wrist, vibrated. A message. A location ping. Someone knew she'd been stopped. Hope flickered, but it was fragile, because hope alone couldn't unlock steel cuffs. The cruiser slowed as they neared a station. Harsh fluorescent lights lit up the parking lot. Maya's pulse quickened. This is it. This is where they process me. Where the story twists too far to undo. But destiny wasn't finished. Not yet. Because as the cruiser pulled in, another car arrived. A sleek, government-issued sedan. Out stepped a man in uniform, an officer who recognized her face instantly. His expression froze, disbelief. Hardening into fury, he marched forward, demanding, "What in God's name are you doing? Do you know who this is?" The arresting officer blinked, confused. "She said she was military." "Military?" the newcomer snapped. "That's General Johnson. 4-star General Johnson." Silence. Heavy, crushing. The kind of silence that breaks men. Inside the cruiser, Maya sat still, her face unreadable. But inside, a storm raged. Because the truth was out. But the damage had already been done. And this was only the beginning. The police lot fell silent. For a moment, even the night air seemed to pause, as though holding its breath. The young officer's grip on his belt loosened. His confidence, so sharp, so rigid minutes ago, melted into something else entirely. Disbelief. General, he muttered. The man from the government sedan stood firm, his chest out, his voice booming with authority. Yes, General Maya Johnson, 4-star, the highest-ranking officer you've likely ever met, and you put her in chains like a common criminal. The words hung heavy. They carried not just anger, but truth, and truth has a way of shattering. Illusions. The arresting officer stumbled back, pale under the fluorescent lights. His mouth opened, closed, but no sound came. His hand twitched near the cuffs on his belt, as if wishing he could undo what had already been done. But the steel on Maya's wrists told the story. It was too late. Inside the cruiser, Maya sat motionless. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes burned. She had endured the humiliation quietly, not because she was weak, but because she understood something the officer never could. Power was not in the cuffs, or the badge, or the cruiser. Power was in composure. And now, the balance of power had shifted. The back door swung open. The military officer who recognized her leaned in. His tone softened, filled with respect. "General, I'm so sorry. Please, step out." Maya moved slowly, the cuffs biting as she shifted. The officer who had arrested her fumbled for his keys, his hands trembling. He unlocked the steel and pulled them free. The sound of the click as they opened was louder than any siren. It was the sound of freedom, of vindication. Maya rubbed her wrists briefly, the skin red from the pressure. She stood tall, her posture unbroken. She didn't glare. She didn't shout. She simply looked the young officer in the eyes, and in that silence, he felt the weight of his mistake more than words could ever deliver. For the first time that night, she spoke with authority. Her voice was calm, measured, but each syllable carried the weight of command. "Do you understand what you've done?" The young officer swallowed hard. His lips parted, but no excuse came, because what excuse could undo what had already happened? Maya didn't need his answer. She turned toward the senior officer. "I want this documented, every detail." And so it was. By morning, the story had spread beyond the small town. A 4-star general, handcuffed on the side of a rural road, treated like a suspect despite her service, despite her sacrifice. News outlets scrambled for details. Social media lit up with outrage. Hashtags trended worldwide. Some couldn't believe it had happened. Others weren't surprised at all. To them, Maya's experience wasn't isolated. It was a reflection of something larger. The police department went into damage control. Press conferences were called. Apologies issued. The young officer was suspended pending investigation. Cameras flashed as officials promised reforms. But the truth was already out. Power had blinded him, and in that blindness, he had tried to strip dignity from someone whose life had been dedicated to protecting the very freedoms he claimed to uphold. For Maya, it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about seeing one man punished. It was about something deeper, the reminder that respect should not be conditional. It should not be based on appearance, or assumptions, or bias. Her soldiers, when they heard the story, were stunned. Many of them struggled to comprehend it. To them, she was larger than life. Their commander, their shield, their leader. To picture her in chains was unthinkable. And yet, that was the truth. Maya addressed them not with anger, but with honesty. "You will face moments when people underestimate you," she told them. "When they doubt your worth before you open your mouth before they know your story. Do not let that break you. Let it sharpen you. Let it remind you who you are." Those words rippled outward, reaching beyond her division, beyond the military. They resonated with anyone who had ever been judged, doubted, or dismissed. As for the young officer who had arrested her, his career would never recover. But more haunting than the disciplinary hearings or the public shame was the memory of Maya's eyes. Eyes that had seen war, sacrifice, and leadership beyond anything he could fathom. Eyes that didn't hate him, but pitied him. Because Maya understood something he did not. Authority is not about domination. It's about responsibility. And in that moment, he had failed his. Years later, he would still remember the weight of those cuffs, not on her wrists, but in his conscience. Maya herself carried no bitterness. But she carried scars, the kind that don't show on the skin. She knew the humiliation would never fully leave her memory. Yet, she chose to transform it into something greater. She began speaking publicly, not about her rank or her achievements, but about dignity, about respect, about the unseen battles people fight every day. Her words weren't bitter, they were powerful. "Authority without humility is dangerous," she said in one address. "Power without empathy is destructive. If I, with 4 stars on my shoulders, can be treated as invisible, what does that say about those who don't have a uniform, about those who don't have a title? We must do better, not just as officers, not just as soldiers, but as human beings." The fall. Applause shook the room. Her story was retold in classrooms, leadership seminars, and even in police academies. It became a cautionary tale, not of shame, but of awakening. Years later, when Maya finally retired, she did so with honor. Not just for her service, but for the example she had set. She proved that true strength is not in how loud you command, but in how steady you remain when others try to strip you down. And as she stood one last time before the flag, the same words her mother once whispered came back to her. "Don't let them write your story before you pick up the pen." Maya had picked up the pen. And she had written her story in bold ink, across battlefields and boardrooms, across humiliation and triumph. Her life was proof that dignity cannot be taken, it can only be surrendered. And Maya Johnson never surrendered. That night on the Aizoff roadside was not just about one woman and one officer. It was about every person who has ever been underestimated, every individual whose worth was dismissed at first glance. Maya's story reminds us of a simple truth. The uniform, the title, the stars on the shoulder, those are symbols. But true authority comes from within. And respect should never have to be earned through humiliation. The world will remember the officer's mistake, but more importantly, it will remember Maya's composure, her strength, her refusal to let one night define a lifetime of service. Because when the cuffs came off, her dignity remained intact. And that is a lesson that outlives headlines.